Greetings, Interworlds. We're back, despite of the hate, or maybe because of it. We don't know. We like it a little bit. I'm David with InvestComics.com.
And Jared of Famous Faces.
We still don't have a name for the show. But...
submit something if you wish.
Yes. To start off, to settle our little argument from last week, yes, Jared was right. They did do a version of Deus Ex for the PS2. So,
point for me.
Point to the halfling.
So
let's get things started.
Starting off with our review of Battlefield 3, the newest in the franchise.
First-person shooter, military shooter. Goodness. One of the really great things about this one is that they integrated the destructible environment engine that they brought in from the Battlefield Bad Company offshoot. So that is for some fantastic fun, but at the same time, one of the things you have to pay attention to when you're taking cover is you may be one-shotted out of nowhere because you don't realize your cover was just blown to bits.
Yeah. It was a pretty impressive game. The engine is great, the graphics are great, sounds great.
Sound is amazing.
I didn't have a chance to jump into the multiplayer. Dave can talk about that in a moment. I was playing the single-player campaign, and it was good, but the story, the backstory of it was really good, but the missions themselves, at least for the first few, were very bland. It honestly felt like something I'd played before, but...
to the point where he actually asked me if this was actually just cut and paste from another game, and as far as I know, this is completely original gameplay.
Yeah, I don't know what it was. It just really seemed like something I'd already gone through. Multiplayer? Multiplayer
is fantastic. DICE, you really do know how to do multiplayer. The only time I've seen you do it wrong was on Medal of Honor, but from what I hear, you basically just kind of slapped your name on it because you were told to. But, DICE, I love you. Multiplayer is fantastic. It's the same system that they've established with the Battlefield franchise before, where you have the 4 different classes. There has been a slight tweak to it this time around, where, unlike in the Bad Company games, they now replaced the medic class with a support class. And the medic class itself was actually, what's the word I'm looking for here? Help me out.
Integrated?
Integrated, there you go. Integrated into the assault class. Your assault is basically going to be assault rifles, your person that's going to go in running and gunning, doing most of the damage in melee. They now also, since they're on the front lines with other guys, it's like, hey, look, why not? They get them the defibrillator pads to perk up their buddies when they're down on the ground dying, or they drop med packs or whatnot. And the class that they have now instead of medic is called the support class, which they still have the same basic gear and loadout that you had from the medic, so LMG, so big firepower that they use to hold off and defend areas. And then the specialty that they do is they put out support packs and ammo packs and everything to kind of keep everyone on the front line going. And then they came back with the recon, is it recon? No, scout and engineer class. They're essentially the same that they have been. Engineer's specialty is they keep vehicles running, which, well, again, Battlefield, love you. Vehicles in your multiplayer is fantastic. Jets are there. They're awesome. Just ungodly difficult to fly. You will crash a lot, provided you can, actually muscle your way into a jet, because people clamor for them and fight over them all the time. But tanks are fantastic. I love tanks. Tanks are so good. But yes, the engineers, their specialty is they will repair vehicles, so if you can actually get out of a vehicle long enough to repair it and not get blown to bits, you can keep going if somebody damages it, because the vehicles will be damaged before they are destroyed this time around, which is a good change of pace. And Scout, they're snipers. It's like, oh look, there's a guy across the map. No more. It's the long and short of it. It's good. Go out, play it. I love it. And now, we'll bring our attention to this beautiful, lovely box here. Uncharted 3. I'm so happy you're come out. Yes. And you have all these wonderful, get out of here, wonderful things. You have our wonderful statue of Drake. The game itself comes in this beautiful collector's tin, and inside the drawers you have these wonderful replicas of two of Drake's articles of clothing, his belt buckle, and his ring necklace. This game is probably going to go down as one of the best games of this year. The franchise is always fantastic. This is third-person action goodness at its best. This is basically Indiana Jones in game form, crossed with Tomb Raider, and it's all good. You have an improved melee system in this one, so you can get into bigger fights and actually handle multiple guys at the same time because there's an increased counter system. And then they have new melee moves, which one of my personal favorites is, hey look, there's a guy coming at you. Pull the pin on one of his grenades and then kick him away and enjoy the fireworks. The multiplayer is back that they introduced in number 2. It is fantastic in this one. They did a great job of balancing it. And how do I know this? I'm terrible and I can still contribute. That is why.
I actually did play the multiplayer a little bit.
Yes.
And it was really good. It's very impressive. Especially coming in knowing nothing about the series because I don't play anything on PS3. A buddy of mine happened to have it. Checked it out. It was really, really fun. A little bit hard to just jump straight into if you're completely unfamiliar with it, but I picked it up pretty quick. I think we were doing I think it's Gold Rush.
That sounds about right.
Yeah.
Gold Rush, Treasure Rush, something of that nature.
Yeah. We were doing that. It was a lot of fun. The two of us were able to, win a couple rounds, and especially me not having any experience with it whatsoever. It's a little bit of a learning curve, but you're able to pick it up pretty quick.
But yes, just absolutely, they did a fantastic job on that. Story is as good and as solid as ever as the franchise is always known for. It starts off a little slow just because it's like you kind of wonder what's going on. There's a couple twists and turns, and then you get hit with the big thing where it's like your enemy this time around is this awful secret cabal that's been around for like 400 plus years and dates back to the original Crown. So yeah, you got some big nasty things to worry about, but it's fun, and it's just the scale of it is just as big and grand as the series has always been known for. There are sequences where you're in a cargo plane fighting in midair while the cargo plane is tilting back and forth, and the contents of the plane are shifting around, and you're trying not to get crushed by cargo against the hull of the plane while at the same time dodging bullets and trying to pummel guys. At one point they open it up and they actually leave you hanging, flapping in the wind, in midair, hanging off of the net from this thing while cargo is falling out of the plane and guys are still trying to kill you and knock you out of the plane. The big physics thing that they wanted to do for themselves this time around was sand, which is why it takes your destination is the Atlantis of the desert. They did a really good job on that. One of my other personal favorite sequences is on a cruise ship that's sinking. So you are fighting your way through this ship, fighting off guys, at the same time you're trying not to drown. And it's just all kinds of goodness.
Interesting. But
yes, buy this game. I cannot say any more good things about it. Well, I probably could, but I shouldn't. Moving on.
I'm going to mention Deus Ex again real quick.
Yay! We're revisiting Deus Ex Human Revolution.
Yeah, the downloadable content, Missing
Link, specifically. That was recently launched. Later on in the story, I'm not going to really spoil anything for you, just pay attention. There's a sequence toward the end where the main character, Alex, is following a signal, tracking a signal from the story. And the way he ends up doing it is by boat, and he ends up going into a cryo unit, and he is out of communication with his headquarters for 3 days. The missing link is that 3 days.
So just filling in the gaps. I hadn't gotten far enough in the story to play it from as the missing time part, so I just jumped straight into it, which is one of the good things that you can do about it. I just started a brand new save file, and it gives you some XP to start off with, so you can actually pick a loadout from the get-go, since this is supposed to be further on in the story. And it also gives you that option if you are playing it from your regular save file, so you can tweak your loadout as well if you decide, like, well, I don't really need this enhancement. controls are the same. It's just extra story, other than the little bit of tweaking that you can do to your character. That's really the only new thing that's added in. But the story is a good draw, and it runs about...
I want to say about 5 hours. You could probably tear through it. It's just fun content, like he said. It's not. It's a little more explanation of just a little chunk of the storyline. The main thing, like Jared was saying, is it's an opportunity to experiment, because they do deactivate all of your augmentations at the very beginning of it, because you're caught and interrogated by this terrorist group that you're tracking. So you are absolutely helpless at the beginning of this. You're just yourself. You can, sneak around and punch things and whatnot. But as he said, you will get an X amount of points that you can redo your augmentations and experiment a little bit. So say you weren't happy with what you had been doing up to that point, try something new. Infamous 2. This is actually going to be a two-part review. Two parts, yes.
Dos amigos?
Yes.
Okay.
Infamous third-person action game from Sucker Punch, which you may know of them for the Sly Cooper games, which, if you've played those, they know their third-person stuff really well. This is the story of Cole McGrath, who is an ordinary bike messenger who is, unfortunately he's caught in the blast of this device called the Ray Sphere, and he is the only one who survives it, but in his surviving, he gains these electrical superpowers. Now, this picks up right where the first game left off, and at the very end of the first game, he's told about this god-awful super being that he has to deal with later on, called the Beast, that is coming to basically just lay waste to everything in their path. You start out the game fighting the Beast and losing horribly. So the whole purpose of this game is you run off to a new city called New Marais, which it's basically a Louisiana type city, and you're running around there trying to juice up your powers and get stronger so you can deal with this creature. Like I said, third-person action. He is a bike messenger, so he uses parkour to get around. So you're jumping off of things and running all over the place, and you just have enhanced agility and movement because of his electrical powers. At this point, the game, you get so many powers in this game that you actually have to switch out what you have on your hot buttons. But that's a good thing, because more powers means more fun, more interesting. They brought back the morality system that they had in the first game. The only downside is it's represented by 2 actual characters in this one. But on the plus side...
Is that which one you choose to help is which path?
Exactly.
Or which moral path you choose?
On the upside, though, later on in the game, depending on which one of them you side with, in addition to your electrical powers, you get to supplement them with either ice or fire powers, which those become real fun. I want to say you could probably go through the game in about 20 to 30 hours, depending on how thorough you want to be with collecting and doing all the side missions and whatnot. And, but yes, very good. Highly recommend this franchise. I will be getting every single one of these so far. And the second part of this review, they put out a digital standalone content for this called Infamous Festival of Blood, which I want to say it takes place probably, story-wise, you could probably fit it somewhere in between the game, if not just after the events of this game. The whole basis is, while they are in New Marais, there is this festival going on that's basically their version of Halloween, but slightly tweaked because, according to the town's history, they were invaded by vampires shortly after they were founded. And then this priest came up, and he was the one who actually beat back the vampires and their queen and destroyed and sealed her away. Turns out that all actually happened. You, unfortunately, while you are at this festival, end up going down to this crypt because there is a cave-in and there's some people down there and you go to help. Well, it was a trap. Vampires are real, they attack you, and you are turned. Yay! But this is actually not a bad thing. It's actually a pretty fun little story. I would say it's probably about 10 hours in length. You have the vast majority of your power, your basic powers that you got in the game, plus you got some new vampiric powers, which those are actually pretty fun. My personal favorite, I would say, is the Shadow Swarm, which is the first one you get. It's basically you turn into a swarm of bats, and it's free flight in this game, which is something that they have not done before. You've come close with his electrical thrusters, but free flight, and it's fantastic. Now, on the downside, which this doesn't really affect the morality because you really don't have to worry about it within the confines of this game, because in the story, all of this takes place over the course of one night. Cole, against his better morality, especially if you're playing good, has to feed on people to power these new vampiric abilities, which it's depending on you may have a problem with that. It's like, hey, look, oh, innocent person, tasty. And then you have another power you get later on, Vampiric Sense, which you can track other vampires and see like secret writings that are left for you from Bloody Mary, who is the vampire queen who turned you, who you're trying to stop. Your amp, which is the main weapon that you had in the main story, has actually been taken away. So you have this makeshift stake that you got by tearing apart a coffin just after you were turned that you use against the vampires, and it's actually pretty cool. What was it? There's another, like these firstborn vampires that you'll deal with that are basically giant bat demons, and one of the things they can do is hide in human form, just mingling about the crowd. One of the really fun things to do in this little scenario is using your vampire sense. You can spot them out, and then you just throw your stake into them, and you just see them flip out and transform, and then dust. And it's just fun to do that repeatedly. But ultimately, like I said, I really did enjoy it. I highly recommend it. It's only about, I want to say, $10 if I remember correctly to download it. And it's a standalone, so you don't actually need the game to play it. But you can enjoy all the goodness that this game is, plus a little extra.
Alright, we're going back a little bit and reviewing something that came out last year.
But oh, so worth talking about.
Red Dead Redemption, and we're also going to talk about its DLC, Undead Nightmare. This was a great game. It's a little weird to think of something set in the Old West being fast enough paced to keep your interest, with weapons being so slow and hard to reload.
It's faster than most, but it does move at a slower pace than most sandbox games. So keep that in mind.
The story does move a little slow, but is really, really fantastic.
And very, really worth it.
It is an open sandbox game, much like Grand Theft Auto 3. You start out in one very large area, and throughout the game you unlock other areas that you can move around to.
It's what they do.
Yeah. This, you were saying this earlier, has the most fleshed out,
it's
and
the most
seemingly alive,
organic, living sandbox world we have seen come out of Rockstar to date. If you've played their other games, mostly the Grand Theft Auto series, say you're running around in the middle of the night and you hear dogs and cats fighting around the neighborhood, okay, fine. You still have that in this. Let's say you're out at a campsite in the middle of the night doing your save or just cooking food or skinning or something. Problem is, in this one, there's actually stuff out there waiting to eat your face.
Yeah, as much as you'll spend time hunting cougars, bears, wolves,
coyotes and such,
they are constantly hunting you as well, which makes it very interesting.
Mexico is lousy with wolves. I don't know why, but Mexico is lousy with wolves.
I specifically find that I will spend hours just stabbing wolves to death with knives.
Yeah, that's one of the fun things, because the hunting system, it's basically part of the currency system, because you can hunt and skin things and take the various pieces and trade them in at the towns for currency.
It's the easiest way to make money.
It is one of them. Same thing with gathering herbs and such. And later on, that actually kind of factors in a little bit with some of the making of a couple things, mostly the herbs more than anything when it comes to like making medicine or some things like of that nature.
The controls on this are really tight. The gun system is really well done, and the Deadeye system is great.
Fantastic.
Although, if you're in a big firefight and you use it, if you
you're
run out,
drain it real quick.
Yeah. So waiting for that to drain is a bit of a pain, but there are several items that you can purchase from the shops.
You can recharge.
Sorry. But there are several items you can buy from the shops to instantly kick it back up to full with some possible side effects.
Tobacco, snake oil. I want to say like there was a potion of
There's whiskey or something, isn't there?
whiskey, something like that.
Right. The graphics on it are generally pretty well. It's the cutscenes look great. Although it's about average for what the Grand Theft Auto games level graphics are, which they're not complete top of the line, but they're pretty good nonetheless.
I'll agree with him in that aspect. The one thing that this does have going for it, as opposed to the Grand Theft Autos, is it seems they have tweaked the engine and we're able to get either more detail or just better texture mapping in. So basic graphics, yeah, but at the same time when they do the cutscenes and whatnot, and you do see the close-ups, you do see much better detail on faces and clothing and such.
Yeah, I think it's more the texture that they did a much better job on. I honestly can't say enough good things about this game. This is one of my favorite games. I think it ran me about 45 hours total to beat it, and all the side missions, and I'm honestly still not done with it, with completing certain challenges.
Yes, you will not run out of content with this game, because in addition to this, there is a full, fleshed-out multiplayer component, people. I myself didn't particularly care for the competitive end of it, just because I was terrible at it, but you do have competitive multiplayer where you have, one of the best things about it is whenever you start a match, it's a Mexican standoff. Both teams are just sitting off and standing there, and then you're just like, wait for it, wait for it. Last man standing gets free run of the map, and they usually run and get the best position, and then it just breaks out into chaos from there, as if it wasn't already.
Yeah. The free roam multiplayer is a lot of fun.
Fantastic.
Basically how that works is you can run around and people will go to certain areas and either activate a match and it'll notify you, so you can head over there and join in, or you can obviously do the same thing and activate the match yourself.
The best thing
a lot
is
of fun.
Getting a posse together and then just going raiding all of the bandit areas in the map, because there are, I want to say, what was it, about 6 different bandit
there's
camps? 6. And you can go together in a posse, and you guys can work together and do these hideouts and get experience and whatnot for your character, and you actually level up. And they took a cue from Call of Duty in the fact that you can level up all the way to level 50, and then you can throw it all away and then pass into Legend and do it all over again.
And that obviously gives you certain perks. It basically gives you access to like special horses and costumes. In the multiplayer.
That's one nasty bull mount
and
that
then
you get.
Undead Nightmare is, again, the expansion that came out for it. Also fantastic.
People in the industry, take note from Rockstar. If you have a sandbox game, Undead Nightmare is the way you need to do DLC. Go nuts. Don't hold back.
Yeah. It's exactly what it sounds like. The undead are rising.
In the Old West.
You start off in the town that you end up at the end, Blackwater.
Yes,
you start off there.
At your farm.
Everything's being overrun with zombies, so you're facing wave after wave of zombies, and you don't start off with much, so it's kind of Resident Evil-esque in that regard.
I think the first weapon that you get besides your pistol is a torch.
But it is basically a fully fleshed out game.
It's
they
about
could have sold it completely separately.
10-12 hours on its own. It's its own little story, and it's zombie apocalypse in the Old West. We know how much fun those things are to deal with nowadays. Imagine that in the Old West with that tech. But on top of that, aside from the zombies, you've got zombie animals running around. You've got the 4 horses of the apocalypse.
Yes, that you can catch and break.
Yes, exactly. So you can run around as one of the horsemen. You have jackalopes running around. There's Sasquatches. The Chupacabras running around. There's a unicorn that you can catch. It is the best kind of ridiculousness and crazy. Again, this is how you need to do DLC when it comes to sandbox games. You have this giant open world that you can do, that you are, almost limited. You have almost no limits in. Do stuff like this, people. It is fantastic. The arsenal alone that you get with this. One of my favorite things that you get in Undead Nightmare, the explosive rifle.
You can have that in main campaign too.
Yes, once you get the content, but it does exactly what it does. You point, you pull the trigger, There is a stain where your threat once stood.
Yeah. Completely obliterates it.
Moving on. Rage. This is the latest shooter from id, the people who invented the first-person shooter and gave us such wonderful titles as Wolfenstein and Doom. This is one of the most beautiful games I've seen to date. This is running on their new id Tech 5 engine. Just the textures and level of detail that they are able to cram on screen is amazing. First-person shooter goodness, but at the same time you have some other stuff kind of mixed in there because they have a really good fleshed out driving aspect to it as well. Because it's a post-apocalyptic Earth after Earth was struck by a meteor. You are this Ark survivor that comes out. You have no idea what's going on. You have no idea how long you've been under. You're the only survivor from your Ark. Oh, sadness. And as you go out and try and experience the wasteland, first thing that happens is bandits jump you and try to kill you. Of course they do. You're saved by one of the characters who is voiced by John Goodman. Does a fantastic job with the character. From then on, you're just kind of trying to survive and make your way and hide the fact that you are a Vault survivor, because there is this group that is the Authority. They're basically the totalitarian, iron-fisted, jackbooted. They want to control everything in this new post-apocalyptic wasteland. And you Ark survivors are very valuable to them when people turn you over. The shining part of this game is hands down the arsenal. They did a fantastic job on it. You have a great array of weapons, and aside from that, each one has multiple ammos, and different ammo types do different things. My personal favorite, the mind control bolts on the crossbow. It's a silent sniping weapon. Get into position, shoot. You're sniping the mind control bolt into someone, and you jack their brain. And at this point, you have total control over them. And as a bonus, you just walk them over quietly with someone else, and then detonate the bolt and take them both out. You have a really good secondary weapon system as well. You have wing sticks, which, if anyone's seen Mad Max, picture the feral kid's boomerang with a third wing. It actually has a little integrated guidance system into it. Hides go flying. You also have turrets that you can put down. You have little RC cars filled with explosives that you can use and drive around to blow things up. But one of my personal favorites, you have spider bots with turrets. Oh, spider bots, I love those things. But campaign is probably about 10 to 15 hours, maybe 20, depending on how thorough you are. And it does have a multiplayer component that focuses around the driving. Decent game. I would recommend it. You can probably get it a little cheaper now, because you can probably find used copies at this point fairly easily. I like it. I would recommend it. I did recommend it. Oh! I'll be.
And our final game of our review, the Eco
and Shadow of the Colossus collection. And despite this being PS3, Jared can actually chime in. Hey!
I did play these back on the original PS2 iterations. Love both these games. Eco not as much as Shadow of the Colossus. Shadow of the Colossus is up there on my top 5 favorite games.
They are very moody, artsy games, but that's a good thing. It's just the atmosphere that these games project and just the worlds that they set you in. They really do suck you in, and you are enjoying yourself.
In Eco, you play a boy who is born into a village, and he grows horns. So that in his village, that means he's meant to be a sacrifice. So they take him to this castle and leave him in a tomb. Shortly after his imprisoners leave, an earthquake hits, and his sarcophagus falls over, breaking open, and lets him out into the castle. And as he's exploring, he meets this girl. She's very pale, dressed in white, named Yorda.
Yeah, looks like she actually glows. She has this strange power to open the doors that you saw his Eco's captors using this mystical sword to open when they were placing him in there.
And he takes her with him as he tries to escape the castle, and they meet the evil queen of the castle, and it's very, very interesting. There's not a whole lot of enemies in the game. Most of it is trying to figure out how to get Yorda from one end of a room to the other, because she's not as acrobatic as you are, and where you can jump and climb very easily, she has a harder time with it.
From time to time, you will see these portals open up and these shadow creatures come out, and they will try to snatch Yorda away, and you have to fight them off. Or at the same time, if you leave her by herself in one room for too long, they will show up as well.
Yeah.
But it's about the two of them working together to try and escape this castle. And one of the great things about this is actually the European version of the game. So you actually have the free roaming camera that you can control with the right stick.
Yeah, the camera in the original was kind of awful.
Yes. And there are slight tweaks to the puzzle, so that's another thing to keep in mind. And another one of the good things is after you beat the game, you can actually go back and replay it in this interesting little two-player mode where someone else is controlling Yorda, so I don't have to worry about her as much. She still can't do anything extra that she didn't do before, but she can, you know, since you have an intelligent mind behind her, it's a lot easier for her to evade things. And it actually will also do subtitles for her, so you can actually know she's saying finally.
Yeah, Shadow of the Colossus was obviously the other half of this 2-pack.
So good.
Fantastic. They fixed most of the problems that the controls had from Eco. With the exception, the camera gets a little wonky sometimes, but it is a game where you are
sensitive when you're aiming your bow.
Yeah. You play a character named Wanderer. He rides into this Wanderer, whatever. He rides into a valley with his fallen beloved draped across his horse.
They're never really clear on the relationship between them.
It's in the backstory.
That chick that he's trying to bring back.
So he lays her on an altar, and he speaks to a voice that tells him it can bring her back if he helps the voice out.
He has to kill these 16 colossi that are roaming around in these valleys, and these are just giant, peaceful, roaming
Most of them.
giants.
Some of them are peaceful. Some of them are straight up trying to tear you to pieces.
Yeah, but at the same time, you were the one that kind of invaded their space first.
That's true.
True.
But that doesn't make them peaceful.
He's got a point there. But for the most part, they just kind of want to be left alone and kind of show up and ruin their day and end them.
Yeah,
it's
pretty interesting that it's a game that only has 16 enemies in it, and that's it. Each Colossus in itself is a puzzle that you have to figure out how to climb up it, where its weak points are,
and how to attack it.
Yeah.
Because they range from the first one, which as you see is the guy here on the cover. All you have to do is like climb up his leg, stick him in the leg to get him down, and then climb up to his head and stab him until he's dead. To underwater leviathans that you got to hold on for dear life and pray you don't drown or lose your grip.
Yeah.
Or flying ones in the desert where you have to.
That's the saddest one.
Yeah, that one went down hard. But it was such an awesome fight where you have to get it close enough to the ground that you have to leap onto it, and then you have from your horse and hold on for dear life while this thing is just banking and doing sky acrobatics trying to get you off, and then it's like, hey, I'm still here. Stabby, stabby, stabby.
Yeah. The relationship you have with the horse is very... It's almost Lassie-esque.
It really is. It's basically your companion, your mode of transportation. You get the vibe that it's basically these two have been together for ever and a day, kind of like Atreyu and Artax from the Burning Story.
Link and Epona from Ocarina of Time.
There you go.
Although the controls for the horse are a little weak, at least they were on the PS2 version. I don't know if they tweaked that at all.
They're pretty much the same. Getting off and on can still be a little hit and miss because you got to be pretty close to the horse for the button to respond.
Yeah, but other than that, it is a great game. Highly recommended.
Yes, and again, since this is on the PlayStation 3, they did up it so they are in full 1080p high def graphics, so they look as beautiful, if not more so. Actually, more so because the level of detail, you will actually see details on that you weren't able to see on the old games because of the limitations of the PlayStation 2.
And they also support stereoscopic 3D.
Which it's actually used to the best in the Shadow of the Colossus just because of the scale and just the angles of which you view some of the Colossi. But yes, we cannot say enough good things about this game. Get this.
All right.